The sound of screeching tires still wakes me up at night. That metallic shriek. That split second between control and catastrophe. On the dashcam footage, you can see everything. The sunlit street, my silver SUV pulling out of the driveway, and Lucy, my daughter, at the corner of the crosswalk, waving at me with her little red backpack swinging. Then, from the left frame, a blur of yellow. Her Debbie Miller, our HOA president, self-appointed god of the neighborhood, storming across the street, shouting something about rules and unsafe parking. And then the moment that froze my blood forever. She shoved my daughter's wheelchair. It wasn't hard enough to look violent, just enough to make it roll. The chair tipped, wheels spun, and Lucy slid forward into the street as a truck barreled around the bend. The horn blared. My heart stopped. I slammed the brakes, door flying open before the car even stopped. The world turned white noise, the engine's roar, people screaming, my own voice calling her name. The truck screeched to a halt, missing her by inches. Lucy's chair toppled sideways. When I reached her, she was crying, terrified, shaking, her hands scraped raw. Debbie stood on the curb, arms folded, face pale but defiant. "She rolled out on her own," she shouted, pointing at my daughter. "You people never follow the HOA's traffic safety rules." I couldn't speak. All I could do was hold Lucy and stare at the woman who had just nearly killed her, and was already rewriting the story. But what Debbie didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that the truth was already recorded. Second by second, on the tiny camera blinking red inside my dashboard. And that dash cam was about to destroy her life. Before that day, our life in Maple Springs looked like a picture-perfect suburban dream. Neat lawns, pastel mailboxes, trimmed hedges, and the illusion that kindness came standard with the mortgage. The HOA called it America's friendliest neighborhood. Back then, I believed them. Lucy loved it here. Every morning, she'd roll her wheelchair down the ramp we'd built together, her hair catching the early sun. She'd stop at the end of the driveway to wave at neighbors walking their dogs or jogging by. Her laughter had a way of pulling smiles out of people, even the ones who pretended they were too busy to care. We had routines. Breakfast at 7. Therapy at 9. A walk before dinner if the weather was good. It wasn't a fancy life, just quiet, consistent, and built around her recovery. After her spinal surgery 2 years ago, the doctors told us she might never regain full strength in her legs. But Lucy wasn't the kind of kid who accepted limits. She'd always say, "Dad, I don't need to walk to move forward. That spirit, her courage, kept me going after my wife passed." The two of us were all we had. And we learned to make peace with simple things, painting birdhouses, feeding stray cats, counting how many shades of pink the sky could turn at sunset. But there was one person who never smiled back. Debbie Miller, the HOA president. Middle-aged, overgroomed, always in that bright yellow blouse like she was allergic to joy. From the moment we moved in, she treated us like an eyesore that needed managing. Her first friendly visit came just 3 days after we unpacked. She smiled tight and handed me a clipboard. "Just a few reminders about neighborhood standards," she said. "Wheelchair ramps require aesthetic approval and parking near the curb violates sightline safety." I blinked. "Sightline safety?" She gestured toward Lucy's ramp. "These things stick out. You understand. We like to keep our properties uniform. I wanted to believe she was just awkward, maybe ignorant, not cruel. But her tone, the way her eyes avoided Lucy's chair, told me otherwise. After that, it was a new complaint every week. "Your recycling bins are visible from the street. Your front light is too bright. Children shouldn't play near driveways. It's a liability." She used the HOA handbook like a weapon, finding rules no one else knew existed. Most neighbors ignored her or feared her. They'd wave politely, whisper, "You know how Debbie is," and retreat behind their fences. But Lucy didn't understand that kind of cowardice. Once, when Debbie scolded her for chalk drawing on the sidewalk, Lucy just looked up and said, "It'll wash off when it rains, ma'am." Debbie's face went stiff, like being corrected by a child was unthinkable. From then on, I saw it, the hostility behind her smile. She wasn't just obsessed with control. She hated being challenged, especially by someone smaller, kinder, and braver than her. Still, I tried to stay civil. The world already gave Lucy enough battles. The last thing she needed was another war at home. So I smiled at Debbie when she passed by. I nodded at her during HOA meetings. I paid every fine she mailed me, even when I knew they were bogus. Because sometimes peace is cheaper than pride, but peace built on silence is fragile, and all it takes is one shove, one flash of cruelty, to show you what kind of neighbor you really live beside. And in our neighborhood, that truth was waiting at the edge of the curb, disguised as order, wrapped in yellow, ready to push. Debbie Miller's obsession didn't arrive all at once. It crept in like a slow leak, one that you don't notice until the whole house starts to rot. At first, it was petty. She'd leave reminder notes under my windshield wipers about trash cans visible from public view. She'd send me screenshots of HOA bylaws highlighted in neon pink. It was irritating, but I kept calm. I'd faced far worse than a bitter woman with a clipboard, but soon, her fixation turned personal. It began the morning Lucy's new therapy ramp arrived. It was sleek aluminum, perfectly within code, but apparently it was too reflective. Debbie marched across the street, heels clicking like gunshots, waving her phone. "Mr. Harris," she snapped, "your new ramp is blinding drivers during the afternoon. It's a traffic hazard. I'll have to report this. I was tightening bolts on the railing." "It's a mobility ramp, not a spotlight, Debbie." "Maybe the problem's your sunglasses." Her jaw tightened. "Excuse me?" I smiled politely. "No offense, but you seem to find danger everywhere except where it actually is." She turned on her heel and left. But her glare lingered, cold, calculating. That night, I got an email from the HOA. Formal notice of ramp review pending. "Potential visual obstruction hazard." Lucy saw the email and frowned. "Dad, is she mad at us again?" "She's just bored, honey," I said, forcing a smile. "Some people don't have enough joy, so they chase problems instead." A week later, she accused me of blocking the sidewalk because Lucy's wheelchair was parked near our driveway. When the mail carrier gently told her there was plenty of room to pass, Debbie snapped, "You don't understand. These people always stretch the rules." That word, "these people," lodged like a splinter. I didn't know what she meant exactly, but I felt the venom underneath it. One afternoon, while washing the car, I noticed her standing at her window, recording on her phone. When I waved, she ducked back behind the curtains. The following morning, another letter arrived. "Unauthorized car washing activity causing runoff onto HOA pavement. Immediate cessation required. It would have been funny if it weren't so pathological." Debbie had made us her project, her personal villain of suburbia. Even the neighbors started feeling the tension. Mr. Cooper, who lived next door, whispered to me one evening, "You know, she fined me for hanging Halloween lights before October. She's losing it, man, but no one dared stand up to her." Debbie wasn't just a neighbor. She was the gatekeeper. She controlled approvals, violations, fees. Fear kept everyone compliant. Then came the day she approached Lucy directly. I was trimming the hedges when I heard that sharp tone again. "Well, young lady," she said, crouching near Lucy's wheelchair, "you shouldn't be playing near the street. HOA rules are there for a reason." Lucy blinked. "I'm not playing, ma'am. I'm waiting for my dad." Her lips curled. "Still, we wouldn't want another incident." I stepped between them. "She's fine, Debbie. You can go home now." Debbie's eyes flicked from Lucy to me. "If your daughter gets hurt, don't blame the HOA," she said quietly, then turned and walked away. It wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. That night, as I tucked Lucy in, her voice trembled. "Dad, why does she look at me like that?" I didn't have an answer. I just kissed her forehead and whispered, "Some people hate what they don't understand." But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to stop. Debbie was circling, waiting for a moment when no one else was watching. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon, one of those painfully ordinary days that blindside you. The sun was sharp, bouncing off the windshields lined along the curb. Lucy and I were running late for her therapy appointment, so I parked our SUV at the edge of the cul-de-sac. right across from the neighborhood gate, 5 minutes at most. Lucy sat in her wheelchair on the sidewalk, her sketchbook in her lap, humming to herself while I locked up the house. She loved that corner because she could see the garden she'd planted with the neighbors' kids, tiny marigolds pushing through the soil. Then Debbie appeared. Clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, striding down the street like she owned the pavement. I could hear her before I saw her. "You can't park here? This isn't a public street!" I waved from the porch. "Just 5 minutes, Debbie." She didn't slow down. "You always say that. You people think rules don't apply to you?" By the time I crossed halfway, she was standing over Lucy. "You need to move back from the curb, young lady. You're blocking the lane." Lucy frowned. "I'm not in the street." "You're close enough." Debbie reached for the handles of her chair. "Don't touch me!" Lucy cried, gripping her sketchbook. I broke into a run. "Debbie, step away from her!" But it happened in a flash. Debbie shoved the chair just a little, maybe out of spite, maybe to prove a point. The front wheels slipped off the edge. Momentum did the rest. The chair rolled forward, faster than gravity should allow. "Lucy!" The world collapsed into noise. The scream of tires, the blaring horn of a delivery truck coming around the corner, the rush of air as metal met asphalt. The truck skidded sideways, rubber burning. Lucy's chair tipped. Papers from her sketchbook scattered like snow. She hit the ground hard, scraping her arm, the wheels spinning uselessly beside her. I reached her first, lifting her before she could cry. "You're okay, baby, you're okay," I said, though my voice broke in half. Debbie froze on the curb, hand over her mouth, eyes wide, not with guilt, but fear of what it would look like. "Say something." I shouted. She rolled into the street. "I was trying to stop her," she stammered, already filming with her phone like evidence was a shield. Neighbors started emerging. Some gasped, some whispered, none intervened. Lucy sobbed into my shoulder, trembling. "She pushed me, Dad." I turned slowly toward Debbie. "You almost killed her. You can't prove that." She snapped, voice cracking. "That's when I saw it, the faint red light blinking on my SUV's dashboard through the windshield." My dashcam had been recording since I'd parked. I looked back at her and said quietly, "I don't need to prove it." The camera already did. Her eyes widened. She turned pale. For the first time, she had nothing to say. By the time the police arrived, the crowd had doubled. Debbie tried to charm the responding officer, babbling about HOA safety and misunderstandings, but I just opened the Dashcam app on my phone, pressed play, and watched her face fall as the truth replayed in front of everyone. The officer's expression hardened. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm going to need you to come with me." As they led her away, Lucy clung to me. "Dad," she whispered, "did the camera really see everything?" "Every second, sweetheart," I said. And this time, the truth won't stay quiet. Because in a world where liars rewrite everything, sometimes a blinking red light is the loudest voice of all. The following morning, our street looked like a war zone made of whispers. Cars crawled past slowly. Neighbors lingered at mailboxes, pretending to check their post. Everyone had seen the dashcam footage by now. It had spread like wildfire, shared in group chats, replayed in slow motion, dissected in whispers that began with, "Did you hear?" But the HOA didn't stay silent for long. They did what they always did when cornered. They issued a statement. The HOA deeply regrets the misunderstanding involving Mr. Harris and Mrs. Miller. Preliminary findings suggest a tragic accident, not intentional harm. We urge residents to remain calm and refrain from sharing misleading recordings. "Misleading recordings," I muttered, reading the email on my phone. "They're defending her." Ryan, my brother and the first person I called after the accident, slammed his coffee mug on the table. "Let them. Once this hits official review, that statement'll age like spoiled milk." Still, it burned. Debbie had been released that night with only a citation for reckless endangerment, pending investigation. The police said they needed to verify authenticity of the footage. Apparently, a video of her shoving a disabled child wasn't clear enough. Lucy didn't leave the house for 2 days. The sound of brakes made her flinch. She clutched her sketchbook like a shield and asked, "Dad, if she says she didn't mean it, Does that mean I have to forgive her? I knelt beside her.
No, sweetheart.
Forgiveness comes after truth, and truth hasn't finished talking yet. But the HOA doubled down. Debbie's allies on the board, the same ones who'd looked away for years, started whispering about me being unstable, about how emotions cloud judgment. One even came to my door, holding a clipboard like a peace offering. Mike, maybe it's best to let this go. For the community's sake. For the community's sake? I snapped. My daughter almost died because your president can't stand being wrong. He stammered something about unity, then scurried away. That's when the fine started again. Unapproved signage, improper lawn edging, camera facing public street. Their message was clear. Stay quiet or pay for it. Ryan was furious. She's pulling strings from the inside. We'll cut them one by one. He called an old contact from the county DA's office. Within a week, the case reopened under review for intent to harm a minor. The dashcam footage went to forensics. Timestamps verified. Suddenly, silence fell from the HOA. But Debbie? She couldn't resist playing the victim. She went on local news, teary-eyed and trembling, saying she'd been harassed by neighbors and set up by edited footage. She's good, Ryan muttered as we watched the segment. Too good. She's desperate, I corrected. She knows she's drowning. Still, the interview stung. Watching her twist the narrative made my stomach turn. But I didn't respond online. I didn't post. I didn't shout. Because the truth was still loading. And when it landed, it wouldn't need hashtags. That night, I went to the garage, sat in the driver's seat, and replayed the footage again. Frame by frame, Lucy waving. Debbie shouting, the push, the wheels rolling, the horn. I closed my eyes and whispered, hold on, baby. We're almost there. In the quiet glow of the dashboard, I made a silent promise. We weren't just going to clear our names. We were going to make sure people like Debbie could never hide behind accidents again, because the world might forgive accidents, but not when the evidence shows intent in HD. By the end of that week, I was running on fumes, caffeine, adrenaline, and sheer rage. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that shove in slow motion, Lucy's chair tipping forward, her terrified scream, the screech of tires. It looped endlessly, like my brain refused to move on until justice was done. Lucy didn't talk much after that. The outgoing, fearless kid who used to wave at passing cars now jumped at the sound of engines. She asked to sleep in my bed again, clutching her stuffed bear so tight its seams began to split. One night I woke up to her whispering in the dark. Dad, why does she still get to walk around free? That question hit harder than any court ruling ever could. I didn't have an answer that didn't sound hollow. Because the world takes time to catch up with the truth, I said quietly. But it will. During the day, the house felt too quiet. Every hum of the refrigerator sounded like a sigh. My phone buzzed with messages I couldn't bear to read. Reporters, lawyers, HOA board members pretending to care. I ignored them all. Ryan came over often, trying to keep me grounded. You did everything right, Mike. You have the footage, the witnesses, the timeline. It's airtight. I shook my head. Then why does she still get sympathy? Why do they call it a misunderstanding instead of an assault? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. We both knew how it worked. The system doesn't move fast for people like us unless we make it. That night, I sat in the garage where it all started. The street was quiet except for the low hum of the dashcam still mounted to the windshield. Its tiny red light blinked steadily, proof that something, at least, was still watching. I pressed play again, and as the footage rolled, something caught my attention I'd missed before. A shadow. A reflection in the passenger side mirror. It wasn't just Debbie there that day. Someone else had been standing at the edge of the street, someone recording on their phone. My pulse quickened. I scrubbed through the footage again, zoomed in, and froze the frame. The person was half hidden behind a hedge, but the blue shirt and phone case were distinct. Mr. Cooper, my quiet next-door neighbor. The man who'd always avoided confrontation, who'd once whispered, "She fined me for my mailbox." He had seen everything, and maybe, just maybe, he'd filmed it too. That realization hit like oxygen. The despair that had been choking me began to lift just a little. I grabbed my phone, scrolled to his contact, and hesitated. It was late. Too late to knock on his door, but I sent a text anyway. "Cooper, I think you were outside during the accident. If you saw anything, please, I need your help." I stared at the message until it sent, heart pounding. Maybe he'd seen nothing. Maybe I was just grasping at ghosts, but even the smallest hope felt like a lifeline. Because beneath all the exhaustion, anger, and fear, something in me was waking up again. It wasn't rage this time. It was resolve. I wasn't done fighting. And if there was more truth out there, I was going to drag it into the light, no matter who tried to hide it. The next morning, I woke up to a text notification. Cooper. I didn't mean to get involved. But yeah, I saw her do it. "I have the video." My heart stopped. My hands trembled as I read it again, just to make sure it was real. He'd filmed it, the entire thing. I called immediately. Cooper answered on the second ring, his voice quiet, scared. "Mike, please. I don't want any trouble. Debbie already threatened to fine me for the paint color on my shutters. I've got a family." "I get it," I said. "But she almost killed my daughter. You don't have to fight her. Just help me show the truth." There was a long silence. Then he sighed. "Come over. I'll show you." I walked to his house, every step heavy. Cooper lived 2 doors down, the kind of man who mowed in straight lines and never made eye contact. He opened the door just enough for me to slip in. His hands shook as he led me to his dining table, where a small phone sat plugged into a charger. He pressed play. There it was again, the same street, the same sunlight, but this time from a different angle. The sound was muffled, but clear enough. Debbie's voice. "You people think you can park anywhere you want." Then the shove, deliberate, sharp, unmistakable. Lucy's scream, the truck's horn, and Debbie's face, twisted not in shock, but in annoyance. I didn't breathe. When the video ended, I just stared at the screen. "Can you send that to me?" Cooper hesitated. "If this goes public, she'll destroy me." "No," I said. "We'll destroy her, legally, with evidence." That night, I showed the video to Ryan. His face darkened as he watched. "This is it. Combined with your dashcam, she's done." He got up, pacing. "We'll take it straight to the DA. Forget the HOA's fake statements. This is aggravated assault." "They can't spin 2 angles of footage." I nodded slowly. "And after that?" He smiled. "After that, we make it public. People need to see what she really is." That was when something in me shifted, from defense to offense. The next day, Ryan filed the footage through official police channels. But I went a step further. I contacted Channel 8 News, the same local station that had aired Debbie's tearful victim interview. I told them I had evidence that would change everything. They agreed to meet privately. When the reporter, a woman named Sandra, watched both videos, her eyes widened. "You realize this is going to explode, right?" "I'm counting on it," I said. She asked if I wanted to appear on camera. I shook my head. "Just show the truth. The world can decide who's the victim." That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the 2 videos overlapping. The dash cam, the phone footage, 2 perspectives converging into one undeniable reality. By morning, Channel 8 released a teaser clip. Within an hour, it was everywhere. Facebook, Reddit, even the HOA's private community board. The caption read, "Exclusive. New footage reveals HOA president pushed disabled girl into traffic." Comments exploded. The same neighbors who'd defended her turned on her. Strangers demanded justice. Reporters called non-stop. When I looked out the window that evening, Debbie's driveway was empty, her car gone. Ryan called minutes later. "She's in hiding," he said. "And now she's running out of lies." I didn't reply. I just looked at Lucy sketching quietly by the window, sunlight hitting her hair, and whispered under my breath, "Run all you want, Debbie." The truth doesn't stop. Now that the footage was out, we couldn't rely on hope alone. We had to move like builders, not bullies. Ryan and I mapped the next steps with the same precision I use on a renovation plan. Timeline, permits, evidence chain. and a public strategy that wouldn't let Debbie wedge herself back into sympathy. First, legal lockdown. Ryan contacted the DA, handed over both videos, and insisted they be forensically authenticated. He made sure the timestamps, metadata, and device IDs were certified so Debbie couldn't cry, "edited," and shuffle it off as a fake. He drafted a sealed affidavit and coordinated with the traffic camera unit to corroborate the truck's path and times. No loose ends, no emotional pleading, just incontrovertible facts. Second, witnesses and paper trail. Cooper signed a sworn statement admitting he recorded the shove. The delivery truck driver agreed to a formal testimony about how close he came to hitting Lucy and about Debbie's body language as he braked. A neighbor produced a text where Debbie griped about that family always parking like they own the street. Ryan subpoenaed HOA meeting minutes showing a pattern of petty enforcement and Debbie's frequent unilateral actions. Each line stacked until her story had no platform. Third, public framing. We didn't want a sensationalist feedstorm as we wanted accountability. I met Sandra from Channel 8 again and asked for a responsible segment, show the footage, keep the focus on the facts, and interview neighbors who'd seen the pattern. She agreed, but only if we gave them the DA's pending review window so it wouldn't look like vigilantism. We coordinated release timing so the public narrative would follow the legal timeline. The court had to look like it was leading the charge, not an angry mob. Fourth, emotional safety. Lucy needed protection from the noise. We talked with her therapist about media exposure and set boundaries, who could speak for us, what images were off limits, and how to shield her from online vitriol. Protecting her was as strategic as proving the case. Fifth, pressure points. Ryan quietly notified the County Ethics Board about the HOA's pattern of misuse and Debbie's influence. He put gentle pressure on the HOA's insurance carrier by informing them of potential liability. Within a week, the HOA started distancing itself publicly. Its official statements became cautious and bland. That was deliberate. We wanted to expose not only Debbie but the enablers who tolerated her. Finally, the courtroom and the courthouse moment. We rehearsed testimony not for theatrics but for clarity. I practiced speaking with neutral cadence, putting facts first and emotions second so my words would hold up under cross-examination. Ryan coached me on phraseology. Avoid speculation, stick to observed behavior, and always reference documented evidence. If Debbie tried to bait me on TV, I'd let the footage do the talking. Throughout, I kept rebuilding our life at home. Small, steady acts, repainting the ramp, planting marigolds, letting Lucy choose the playlist again. Strategy without heart is no strategy at all. Lucy needed normal. The neighborhood needed an example of calm courage. As subpoenas landed and the DA prepared charges, Debbie shrank from the porch lights. Her allies fell silent. The pressure we'd applied was surgical, deliberate, contained, inevitable. When Ryan looked at me the night before the arraignment, he said, "You built this case the way you build houses, with a strong foundation. She can't undo that." I nodded, thinking of Lucy's laugh returning at dinner that week. Then we walk into court and let the facts stand. The plan was simple. Gather every fact, protect the vulnerable, and let the law finish what the camera began. The day of the hearing, the courthouse parking lot looked like a media festival. Tripods lined the curb, microphones poked from every direction, and people who had once called Debbie our community leader now whispered her name like it was toxic. Ryan and I walked Lucy in through the side entrance to avoid the cameras. She held my hand tight, her little fingers trembling but steady. "Dad," she whispered, "are they all here for her?" "Yeah," I said softly. "They finally see her." Inside, the courtroom buzzed with the heavy hum of tension. Debbie sat at the defense table, no yellow blouse this time, just a dull gray suit that made her look smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her lawyer whispered in her ear, but her eyes kept darting toward us, then down again. The judge entered, papers shuffled, and for the first time since that awful day, everything that mattered was about to be said out loud. Ryan took the stand first. He was calm, methodical, walking the jury through the dashcam metadata, frame by frame. "The footage was continuous," he said, projecting images on the monitor. "You can clearly see the defendant approach, make contact with the wheelchair handles, and push." Then came Cooper's clip, the second angle. The courtroom gasped when the audio hit. Debbie's exact words, "You people think you can park anywhere you want." Debbie's lawyer tried to object. "The phrasing could be misunderstood as—" The judge raised a hand. "Overruled. The video speaks for itself." It did. You could feel the weight shift in the room. Sympathy drained from Debbie's side like water through sand. Her hands trembled as the prosecutor read the charges: aggravated assault, endangerment of a minor, and obstruction of justice. When my turn came, I didn't look at Debbie. I looked at the jury, at the faces of 12 strangers who had never met Lucy, never seen our ramp or our house or our morning routines. I told them about that day, about Lucy's laughter, about what it means to see someone you love almost die because a neighbor's pride mattered more than a child's life. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just said the truth, the same way I'd built everything else, steady, honest, and meant to last. Then the judge allowed the footage to play one final time, side by side, dashcam on the left, Cooper's clip on the right. 2 views, 1 crime. Silence followed. The kind of silence that holds its breath before a verdict. The jury didn't need long. They found her guilty on all counts. As the bailiff cuffed her wrists, Debbie turned toward me. Her eyes were wet, not from remorse, from disbelief, like she couldn't fathom that someone she thought beneath her had won. Outside, the reporters swarmed. Microphones everywhere, flashes blinding. I held Lucy close while Ryan shielded us with his arm. Someone shouted, "Mr. Harris, what do you want people to take from this?" I paused, looked straight into one of the cameras, and said quietly, "That justice isn't revenge. It's remembering. Remembering who we are when no one's watching." The clip went viral overnight. Headlines read, "HOA president convicted after dashcam proves assault on disabled child. When pride turns criminal, the suburb that finally spoke up." But more important than the headlines were the messages. Parents, veterans, single moms, people who'd been bullied by small tyrants in big houses. They thanked us for not letting her rewrite the truth. Lucy read some of them and smiled. "Dad," she said, "does this mean she can't hurt anyone else now?" I hugged her close. "No, sweetheart. It means the world finally saw her for who she really is." Truth had spoken, not through anger, but through light, one frame at a time. The sentencing came 2 weeks later. The courthouse was quieter this time, fewer cameras, no shouting crowds. But the weight in the air was heavier. Everyone who mattered was there, the judge, the press, the neighbors who'd once pretended they didn't see, and the woman who had tried to hide behind rules and lies. Debbie Miller sat at the defense table, thinner now, pale, her posture brittle. The bright yellow blouses were gone, replaced with the gray county-issue cardigan that made her look like her own ghost. When the bailiff called our case, she didn't even look up. The judge adjusted his glasses, scanning the file. "Mrs. Miller," he began, "this community entrusted you with authority, and you used that authority to torment and endanger a child. The evidence presented was overwhelming." She shifted in her seat, eyes darting. "Your Honor, I never meant—" He cut her off gently but firmly. "Intent does not erase action. You acted out of spite. You put your pride above human life." You could feel the room freeze as he read the sentence. 5 years in state prison, probation after, and permanent removal from any HOA or community leadership role. When the gavel struck, it echoed like thunder. Debbie's jaw dropped open. She looked around the courtroom, searching for allies who weren't there. Not one of her former supporters met her gaze. Then she saw me. For a long second, we just looked at each other. The man she'd tormented, the father of the child she'd nearly killed. Her lips trembled. "I was just trying to keep order," she whispered. I stood. "You confused control with order," I said quietly. "And now you'll finally learn the difference." The bailiff took her by the arm, leading her toward the side door. As she passed Lucy, who sat beside Ryan clutching her stuffed bear, Debbie slowed. Her eyes softened for a moment, maybe realizing too late that she'd tried to destroy something pure and unbreakable. Lucy didn't flinch. She just looked up and said, "You should be nice next time." The courtroom went silent. Even the judge paused. Debbie's eyes shimmered, a single tear breaking through the mask, and then she was gone. Outside, sunlight cut across the marble steps like a spotlight. Reporters waited again, but this time it wasn't chaos. It was reverence. People clapped quietly as we exited, not for me, but for Lucy. She smiled shyly, unaware that her bravery had become the symbol of something much bigger. Ryan put a hand on my shoulder. "You built justice from the ground up, little brother. Most people only talk about it," I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. "We didn't build it," I said. "We just showed what happens when truth stops apologizing." That night, we went home and sat on the porch, the same porch where it had all started. The ramp gleamed under the moonlight, polished and strong like a silent witness to everything we'd endured. Lucy rolled out beside me, her face calm. "Dad, is it really over now?" "Almost," I said. "Justice doesn't stop with her. It starts with what we do next." She looked thoughtful. "Can we help other kids who get treated bad too?" I smiled, my throat tight. "Yes, sweetheart. That's exactly what we'll do." We watched the neighborhood across the street. The for sale sign stood in front of Debbie's old house, creaking softly in the wind. The same neighbors who'd once avoided us now waved when they passed. The street felt lighter. Later, as Lucy fell asleep, I replayed the day in my head, the verdict, the gavel, her small voice cutting through all the noise. "You should be nice next time." Maybe that was the real sentence. Not 5 years in a cell, but a lifetime of knowing that the person she tried to humiliate ended up teaching her a lesson she'd never forget. Before heading to bed, I stepped outside one last time. The stars hung low over the cul-de-sac. I whispered to the night, "For every person who's ever been bullied, shamed, or silenced, this was for you." The porch light flickered softly behind me, the same one that had once illuminated fear. Now it glowed warm and steady, a beacon, a promise. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It builds slowly, brick by brick, until even the cruelest lies collapse under their own weight. And when it's finished, it doesn't ask for thanks. It just stands there, quietly shining. The weeks after sentencing felt like a deep breath I hadn't taken in years. The air in Maple Springs was different now, cleaner, lighter, like someone had opened a window and finally let the poison out. The neighborhood that once looked perfect but felt rotten had cracked open, and from those cracks, something real began to grow. The HOA was disbanded temporarily, pending reorganization. The new board, built from volunteers, not tyrants, rewrote the bylaws with one simple principle: compassion first. They called it Lucy's Clause, a requirement for accessibility and empathy in all community decisions. The irony was almost poetic. Debbie's obsession with control had built the foundation for fairness she never practiced. Neighbors who once avoided me now stopped by just to talk. Mrs. Taylor brought homemade bread and whispered, "We were all scared of her. You showed us we didn't have to be." The mail carrier, the same one Debbie used to harass, left a note on our porch that simply said, "Glad you stayed." Lucy began to heal too. Her laughter came back slowly, like sunlight after rain. She painted again, bright colors, smiling faces, none of the gray shadows she used to draw after the accident. One afternoon, she showed me her latest painting, our street, the ramp, the garden, and 2 stick figures holding hands under a blue sky. At the bottom, she'd written, "We made it safe." That broke me a little, not from sadness, but from relief, because she was right. We'd survived the storm. Ryan came by one evening with a small box. "From the department," he said, grinning. Inside was a plaque in recognition of civilian integrity and courage in pursuit of justice. I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't a hero, just a father who refused to let silence win. Ryan leaned back on the porch rail, watching Lucy race her wheelchair down the ramp. You know, he said, for a place that worshipped rules, it finally learned something about humanity. Yeah, I said softly, and maybe that's the kind of order worth keeping. As the sun dipped below the houses, the streetlights flickered on, each one humming gently, not harsh, not sterile, just warm. I realized it wasn't just a neighborhood anymore. It was a community again. Debbie's house sat dark and empty across the street. The grass had started to grow wild and the once perfect flower beds were overrun. For the first time, the disorder didn't bother anyone. Lucy rolled up beside me, her small hand gripping mine. "Dad, are we done fighting now?" I smiled. "Yeah, sweetheart. We're done fighting." She nodded, then pointed toward the ramp gleaming in the dusk. "Then we can start building again." And in that moment, I knew she wasn't just talking about wood and bolts. She was talking about people. Because sometimes, justice isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of something finally worth living for. A month after the sentencing, Maple Springs felt like it had been reborn. The fences still matched, the lawns were still trimmed, but something deeper had changed. People actually spoke to one another now. There were smiles that weren't forced, kids playing where silence used to reign, and laughter echoing down the same streets where fear once lived. Lucy and I spent our weekends rebuilding, not the house, our purpose. Together we started a small project we called Drive Kind. It began simple, installing dash cams for families who couldn't afford them. Ryan helped us set up a small website, and within days, messages poured in from parents, teachers, and community workers who wanted to join. What started as our story became a movement, proof that one tiny lens of truth could change everything. One afternoon, a news crew returned to interview us. Lucy sat proudly beside the ramp she'd painted herself, sky blue with golden streaks that caught the afternoon light. The reporter asked, "Lucy, what do you want people to remember from all this?" She grinned. "That being mean doesn't make you right. Being kind does." The clip went viral again, but this time not as outrage, as hope. The comment section was full of people sharing their own stories. Parents bullied by HOAs, teachers silenced by bureaucracy, neighbors learning to speak up. For once, the internet wasn't angry, and it was inspired. When the cameras left, Lucy turned to me. "Dad," she said softly, "do you think Debbie's watching this?" I thought for a moment. Maybe, but that's not who this is for. Who then? For everyone still scared to tell the truth. That night, as the neighborhood lights flickered on, I sat on the porch and watched Lucy sketch in her notebook. A ramp. A sun and two hands reaching out to each other. The world had tried to make us small, but somehow we'd built something bigger than revenge. Across the street, Debbie's old house had finally sold. The new family hung wind chimes on the porch, and when the breeze blew they sang, soft, forgiving, almost like a prayer. I picked up my camera, pointed it at the ramp, and hit record. "To everyone watching," I said quietly, "remember this. Truth doesn't shout. It waits, it watches. And when the time comes, it stands unshaken. If you've ever been silenced by power or bullied into compliance, this story is for you. Speak up, stand firm, protect what's good, even when it's hard. And if you believe that kindness and courage still matter," I smiled at the lens. "Subscribe, share, and help us keep building a world where the truth doesn't need permission to exist." The camera light blinked red, steady, patient, unblinking, the same way it had on that terrible day. Only this time, it wasn't recording pain. It was recording legacy.